I don't think I've ever told this story, so this might be like the first time I've said it.
What's up, everybody? My name is Wes Littlefield, and I'm here at RedCrest once again. And this time, I've got Chad Hoover with Kayak Bass Fishing. If you don't know who he is, he's literally like the godfather of kayak bass fishing. He started a tournament series which led to a national circuit. I mean, just on and on. He goes about his interview and does an awesome job with veterans because he is one himself. And so if you guys love kayak fishing, this is your interview. If you love veterans, this is your interview. Let's check it out.
Hey guys, I'm Chad Hoover. I'm the founder of Kayak Bass Fishing. Been kayak fishing for 26 years. This year in November will be my I'll hit that 27-year mark. Spent 20 years in the Navy. Retired from the Navy in Norfolk, Virginia. Moved over to Middle Tennessee. I've lived in Tennessee since I retired, going on 10 years now. I love it there, but what I love the most about it is it's centrally located. So not only does Tennessee got great fishing, but it puts me right in the middle of going to a whole bunch of other great fishing, like here in Oklahoma. You know, Oklahoma's been one of my kind of like go-to, but keep it on the down low spots for a long time. Had the opportunity to come out to the Major League Fishing RedCrest Expo, jumped at the opportunity, not just because I could come out here and know that there's going to be a great fishing audience and a great fishing crowd, but to also go fishing while I'm here. So big fan of the Illinois River. We're going to hit that for a couple days when we get off when the show's over with. And I've just pretty much decided I'm not doing shows or events anymore where I can't fish. Doesn't make sense to go places, talk about fishing, and not get a chance to do it. So I'm excited about the show, but I'm also excited about the show being over so I can get back on the water. So yeah.
I don't blame you. That's awesome. The upper or the lower, like down below 10 killer?
No, it's upper for this one.
Okay, so that's why. So all the trout down lower.
Yeah, so this is going to be pretty much a smallmouth.
Yeah.
Slugfest, hopefully.
Hopefully. I've never fished the upper. I've spent years and years on the lower, never fished the upper. Yeah. That's cool.
Good trout? Like, are we talking about, what kind of trout are we talking about?
They're hatchery raised stock trout. Okay. So, I mean, you know, they're eating size.
Okay, cool. They're fun then.
Oh, they're a blast to catch.
Yeah, absolutely. I might do that too for just adding more species to my catch 22.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
Yeah. Yeah, because not only am I catching 22 bass in 22 states, but I'm also trying to catch 22 different species along the way.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it's catch 22, catch 22, you know?
Catfish are a big Oklahoma staple.
They are.
So that might be one.
Yeah, and I really wish I had the time to hang out because I know I'm here right at the time when it's about to get started and get good, but paddlefish, trying to snag a paddlefish, those things are just such a cool, unique species that would be really fun to try to do.
I've told my wife that I want to talk to the guide who has the world record, the last 2 or 3 world records on Keystone, have him haul me out on his boat in my kayak and hook one from my kayak. And
so there's a guy that won a giveaway trip with me a few years ago, and he went fishing with me in Wisconsin as part of the giveaway, and he's like the guy for snagging them in Missouri, and he's been like telling me, dude, you got to come out, and he's like, we can go do it from the kayak. So I'm planning to do that as soon as I can get my schedule to line up. The problem is you got bass on the beds, you got turkey gobbling in the fields, and you got that going on at the same time. So I just got to make time to make it a priority. So yeah,
that's awesome. So tell me how you got into kayak fishing initially.
Okay, so I got into kayak fishing somewhat by accident, but accidentally on purpose. So let me explain that. I was in Corpus Christi in the Navy. It was 1996, and I was driving down a beach, and I had started guiding fishing trips with a fly rod, casting into the surf on Padre Island National Seashore. So we see this Jeep parked in the sand, and I see this rod sticking up out of the rod holder, and the tip's going like that. And so I look out, and I see a guy out in a kayak, and he was paddling a shark bait out, paddles back in, and both myself and my clients were interested in hanging out and seeing what he was doing. Well, he had a captain's chair welded to a hitch receiver that plugged into the back of his Jeep. He would paddle these big baits out, drop them, paddle back in, tighten up his line, loosen up the drag, and then he would sit there in this captain's chair waiting for these big sharks to hit. And the reason that he had a little kayak and that captain's fighting chair is either he would do it by himself or 2 people would go out there. He would hook the carabiner from the rope on the front of the kayak to the bumper. Then when the shark hit, and if it was about to spool him, he would drive down the beach to keep up with it, dragging the kayak along behind him. So I grew up in Louisiana fishing out of I grew up in Louisiana fishing out of canoes and these little boats called pirogues. It's a Cajun thing, and they were basically like sitting on a greased log. They weren't that stable. The idea was just to float. And so because I knew about those, the minute that I saw the first roto-molded plastic sit on top kayak, I was like, holy crap, that's a plastic pirogue. That'd be perfect for fishing. So I had the conversation with that guy that day, and back then we didn't have cell phones and things like that the way that we do now. And so he wrote his number down and gave it to me. And maybe 2 weeks later he called me. He's like, hey man, I know you wanted that kayak, I'm about to sell it. I'm like, okay, I don't have any money. No, I'll sell you the kayak, a paddle, a PFD, and a pin rod for $100. I was like, $100? I said, dude, I don't have but $100. He's like, all right, cool. Here's my address. Meet me over there, and I'll take it. And I'm like, what the hell? So I was like, but I was intrigued. So I literally went to get the money out of the ATM, and I had $100, but you know you can't draw 100 if you have 100 because it charges the fee. So I could literally get out $80. So I took the $80 out. I went to his house and I said, look, man, when I said I had $100, I literally meant I have $100 till payday. But I got 80 out, and if we could work something out, I can maybe buy it. He's like, I'll take the $80. As soon as you can get the money, you let me know. Well, I hate owing people something. So I went and donated blood like twice over the next week so I could pay him the other money. And then I had a kayak. It was a little cheap ocean kayak, Frenzy, I think. It was like 9.5 feet. And I think the first 2 times I went fishing in it, I flipped it. But I also knew I was getting to places that nobody else could get to. So I mostly used it to wade fish and then paddle to my next spot and then wade fish and then paddle to my next spot and then wade fish. And so that's why to this day, I allow wade fishing in kayak bass fishing when a lot of people think that's not kayak fishing. You should have to catch the fish, take the photo, and do everything from the kayak. And I'm like, well, to me, part of kayak fishing is the fact that you can paddle to your spot and get out, and you can even be more stealthy than the kayak is. So I love wade fishing. I loved wade fishing as part of kayak fishing because that's how I got into it. And so yeah, I bought a kayak for money I didn't have. I got into it. Then I owned a flats boat at the time because I used to guide both Padre Island National Seashore fishing trips and flats fishing trips. And so I used to throw my little kayak on the side of my flats boat, on the side of the center console, run out to the spot, and then get in the kayak and paddle to the fish. I called that mothershipping. And before it was all said and done, I just figured out, and as kayaks got better, my next kayak was an ocean kayak drifter, which is a little bit wider, Scrambler XT, then the drifter, but they just kept getting a little wider, a little more stable. I started rigging out PVC rod holders and milk crates and things like that to make fishing from them easier. And it wasn't long before I was fishing out of the kayak more than I fished out of my boat. I ended up selling 2 boats. I had a bass boat that was old and a flats boat that was new. I sold both of them, and I've pretty much been fishing out of a kayak since. So
that's awesome. Yeah. I know growing up we had a couple little farm ponds that I'd take our kayaks out and paddle around and go fishing and stuff with them, and that was my introduction. And then actually my biggest introduction was floating down the lower Illinois. We'd go floating down there, and that was my introduction. That was a long time ago. And then I kind of got out of kayaks, and then just the last few years I got back into it and realized just how awesome all these fishing kayaks are.
Yeah, and it's a different creature now from when I started, you know?
Yeah, you said 26 years or?
Whatever 96 is, 26 or 27 years, so
yeah. That's awesome. I won't tell you that that's almost as old as me, but.
You didn't have to. You said growing up you were fishing out of fishing guy, which means they were around when you were already a young kid, so I get it. Yeah, I get it.
So tell me a little bit about your introduction into.
So like I've been kayak fishing since you were in diapers, pretty much. You know?
Yeah. Yes. I'm 28 or 27, 28, something. So
yeah,
yes,
something like that.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about creating KBF and what led to you wanting to do that. Like, what was your inspiration?
Just like getting into kayak fishing. I was into kayak fishing, but there was a lot of saltwater tournaments and there was no bass stuff. The kayak fishing really blew up first in saltwater. Then I was like, man, somebody ought to make a kayak bass fishing page. Somebody ought to make a kayak bass fishing tournament. Somebody ought to make and before it was all said and done, I mentioned it and a buddy said, you should do it. I'm like, I don't know anything about websites. He bought the website while we were talking about it at a party. The next day he showed me how to transfer the website to me. And we did that, and then I like to tournament fish, and I was a competitive person. And so what we decided to do is, because catch, photo, release was the way that kayak fishing worked, we started working on building an online platform. There was one other online platform where they were doing the catch, photo, release thing, but he was very focused on saltwater. I actually reached out to him and said, hey, we should partner together. He's like, why would I partner with you when I can do it myself? And I was like, okay, fine. 20-something years later, kayak bass fishing is one of the biggest things in, not just kayak fishing, but in fishing, and nobody knows who he is anymore. So that just shows you, sometimes kids, when opportunity knocks, don't let your ego get in the way of being willing to work with somebody, because half of a watermelon is bigger than a whole grape, you know? So anyway, the system that he had wasn't that great anyway, and I always had a vision for making it better. So I got with a buddy, that same buddy that bought the URL for me, also knew how to program, and so he made the first ever catch, photo, release tournament page where you uploaded the fish to it and all this other stuff, and it just evolved from there. And so the more people that we got to compete in the online tournaments, the more the people were like, we need to have a tournament. And I'm like, man, I don't want to run a tournament. And then I was like, dude, we got to have a tournament. So in 2009, we started the online series. By 2012, the roar for a real tournament and an in-person tournament was so loud I couldn't ignore it anymore. So we had the first live kayak bass fishing tournament, 2012, on Santee Cooper, South Carolina. And then the next year we had another one in Santee Cooper. I was getting ready to retire from the Navy, looking for other options. Kentucky Lake was the biggest, largest, longest lake near me. It made sense. It had a lot of backwater, it had a lot of access, had a lot of different types of fishing. So we hosted the third Kayak Bass Fishing Open on Kentucky Lake. And right about that time, we'd gotten enough momentum that people were like, man, we should have a national tournament trail and a national championship. So what started as like, somebody should do a tournament, and I'm like, good God, I don't want to do a tournament. So then doing a tournament, having a little bit of success, I was like, you know what, this could be something. So let's actually go with it. And we ended up just slowly but surely adding more tournaments and more tournaments. And I'm one of those people that has a hard time telling people no. So the more people asked for it, the more I gave it. And I think that the pendulum has actually swung kind of to the point where now we probably have too many tournaments, meaning we're not getting the participation numbers that we need at some tournaments. Part of that has to do with the fact that there's other options out there, like what Hobie does, what Bassmaster does. And I'm actually, not only, that's not a problem for me, but I'm excited about it, because that was my whole goal, is not just for me to do kayak fishing tournaments, because like I said, I didn't really want to do them, but for there to be kayak fishing tournaments, for it to show how awesome kayak fishing is. So now that I don't have to carry the whole load of doing all the tournaments, and now that there's a lot more grassroots ambassador type organizations out there, we've really switched our focus to the ambassador series, supporting the clubs that are doing their tournaments, growing the trail, creating a pro series that goes with the trail series, and then hopefully will evolve away from it towards its own thing, to give these anglers an opportunity to make a living kayak fishing. So it's just been one of those things where it started as everybody wanted it. I felt like I was in a position to do it. Also, people just kept saying they wanted me to do it. So I finally did it, and it's kind of one of those, as they say, the rest is history type things. So that's it, the rest is history.
That's awesome.
Here we are. We're like going into our 7th national championship this year. One of the coolest formats or concepts that we've come up with is the 10. And the 10 is the top 10 anglers from the previous year's Angler of the Year standing. Because what I wanted to do is I didn't want an Angler of the Year race where towards the end of the year, if somebody had clearly already won Angler of the Year, it devalued the Angler of the Year race, and people were like, oh, well, I can't win now. I wanted people to fish hard to be in that top 10. And then what we do is we take those 10 anglers, we take them to a place, put them all up in a house, put them in one location. They fish for 2 days for 10 fish, so 5 fish per day for $10,000. And, you know, and I'm biased, it's not the highest payout that we have, but in my opinion, it's arguably, and again, I'm biased, but it's the most elite event in kayak fishing. You're taking the top 10 anglers from the Angler of the Year standings, and you're putting them on the same body of water at the same time under the same conditions and saying, let's find out who's the best. And so I love that format. That's something that we're going to always do. And we've evolved in the past, and we're going to continue to evolve based on customer demand, what our community wants us to do to provide, you know, opportunities and resources and educational information for kayak anglers. So, in fact, we just last week finally were able to work with a group of people in the ACA to get past their educational council a 14-5 vote to finally develop the first ever kayak fishing safety curriculum.
Cool.
So we haven't really, actually I haven't even gone out and publicly announced this yet, but yeah, we finally got the momentum and got all the stars aligned to where we were able to go before their board, their council, their board, get them to vote on it, and it passed 14-5. I don't know what the hell the 5 people that voted against it were thinking. I think a lot of them are trying to protect their little bubble of whatever it is that they do, but kayak fishing safety curriculum and instruction is long overdue. I was going to do it either way if they didn't decide they were going to do it this year, but thankfully the organization that's charter is to create paddle sports safety instruction and curriculum is now going to do that and moving forward with it, and I'm excited to be part of that. So yeah, everything in kayak fishing has gotten better over the last couple of years, and it's continuing to get better. We're going to focus very heavily on getting kids involved and using this platform to raise both awareness and to raise money for veteran suicide prevention. So yeah, I'm in a very good place. I'm blessed to be able to do what I do, and it doesn't make any sense for me to be in that place and not use that blessing as an opportunity to give back to others. So
go ahead and go into the veteran suicide prevention. That's the Mission 22, right?
Yeah, so Mission 22 is an organization that is a not-for-profit that has a program called R&R that they use to help veterans get to the point where they're not susceptible to suicide. It's a program, they say an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. They're not a crisis management, like if somebody's suicidal right now and ready to, needs help. That's why there's veterans, crisis lines for that, which we have a resource page on our website, kayakbassfishing.com/veterans. But they're an organization that's created a program and a curriculum to help veterans rehabilitate. And I'm proud to help them raise money and raise awareness, because when I needed that, there wasn't a group out there like that. The VA sucks, period. It's horrible. It's not the people at the VA, it's that they're underfunded, they're understaffed, they're underprepared, and yeah, they just don't have the resources that they need. So these not-for-profits like, Wounded Warrior, Folds of Honor, Mission 22, Heroes on the Water, do a great job of filling that void. And the reason that I chose Mission 22 is I feel like they have the best program founded and based in science that's tied to a good brand, because that way it's memorable and people get it, so that we can truly make a difference. And so it was 2022 coming around the corner. The number 22 kept popping up. My son turned 22 last year. I was in HSE 22, my last squadron. I found out about the 22 kills thing. There was just so many things that were like signs God was saying, "Psst, hey bro, psst," and then finally just knocked me over the head and said, dude. And when I say like knocked me over the head and said it, it was just one of those things. It became obvious what I needed to do. And I'm one of those ready, shoot, aim people in a lot of cases. And so I told my wife, I said, I think I'm gonna try to catch 22 fish in 22 states in 2022 to both video it and to talk about it, but to raise awareness for veteran suicide. And so we were gonna launch a foundation until I found out how much it cost to run a foundation, and then realized that I could put that money towards the cause instead of wasting it on running a foundation. Not that if you run a foundation it's a waste, but running a foundation that would be doing the exact same thing that there's already organizations doing. So we decided to launch a brand called Fish Ops, because we wanted to create a brand with a mission. And the OPS stands for Operation Prevent Suicide, Operation Provide Scholarships, and Operation Provide Support. So we're gonna support other people running charity tournaments. We're gonna use the platform, the mechanisms, the skill sets that we have, and the following that we have for not just veteran suicide awareness, but for any good cause that says we want to run a tournament or a charity tournament to do that. And so we're providing support there, but that's really not our primary mission. It's just one of the missions. The primary mission is to raise awareness for veteran suicide. and to generate funds that we can give to the organizations that are already invested in that. The Operation Provide Scholarships part of it is, I know a lot of veterans who've made that ultimate sacrifice, and then their kids are left with an uncertain future. And so if we can raise money and raise awareness for the fact that that exists, and at the same time create an opportunity to create scholarships for fish camps and for fishing clinics and summer camps and things that kids can go to. You might have a dad or a mom that's on deployment and their kids are staying with their grandparents, or they're staying with the other parent who's a single parent, and they don't have time to take them fishing, or they don't have the gear or the skill sets, but that kid is interested in fishing. We can create a fish camp, we can bring them in and put them through fish camp. But the idea is we want to take these veterans who don't have a mission anymore, get them through fish camp as a instructor, and then they become mentors that teach fish camp to kids. And so the each one reach one concept is something that I've been acutely aware of ever since my first few days in leadership education in the military, and that's carried over into my personal life. And my goal with KBF and with Fish Ops is that if each one can reach one, we can get one more butt in a boat. If we get one more butt in a boat, that's one more person that's an evangelist for the best way to fish that there is. It's the most connected, the most intimate, the only thing close, in my opinion, is fly fishing when you're in the water and you're but there's just so many barriers to entry in a lot of cases with fly fishing. There's a lot less access to fly fishing to, disadvantaged children, lower income, blue collar work, people. So bass fishing is universal. It's all over the country, all over the world. It's one of those things where it's also one of the most frustrating and hard fish to catch at times, but it's also one of the easiest, straightforward, most ferocious fish out there when it is easy to catch. So it's a fascinating fish for me. It's something that I've spent my entire, not just adult life, but my entire natural life chasing. Doesn't make any sense. You're chasing something with a brain about the size of a BB, but it works. And so I knew that was the avenue that I wanted to go for creating a platform. We've got several cities that are on board. We've got a lot of sponsors are getting behind it. We haven't quite got to the point to where we're ready to announce it publicly yet. But the idea is that we're going to use Fish Ops to fund donating money to Mission 22, to creating enough revenue to generate these fish camps where we can bring veterans in and use the fish camp to teach them that they can make a difference by teaching a kid to fish. And if you give them a mission, if you give them a purpose, they're a lot less likely to succumb to suicide. So therefore, that's all connected together. When you get into the game of not-for-profits, you can't have multiple missions. You gotta have one charitable mission. So then we just decided to launch a brand with a purpose instead of a not-for-profit. That also allows us to partner with other organizations much more easily. I've had so many meaningful conversations here at RedCrest with brands that are like, heck yeah, I want to get on board with what you're doing. How do I get on board with what you're doing? How do we support it? That's really, been the affirmation that what we're doing is right. It's what I should be focusing my energy on. And I feel like we're going to come out of here with a lot of momentum for the Catch 22 Challenge. You guys can join the Catch 22 Challenge yourself. Just go to kayakbassfishing.com, look for the Catch 22 banner on the homepage, click on that banner. You can sign up for $22, and the net proceeds from that goes to Mission 22. When I say net proceeds, a lot of times people say that, and then they just keep on going. We are donating 100% of our net proceeds, meaning after the cost of PayPal for your entry fee, and the cost of judging and running the tournament, and then the price of the coin or the dog tag that we give to the people who participate so they get something out of it, the net proceeds of that, so probably somewhere between $13 and $15 of each entry is going to go directly to Mission 22. So we're excited about that. We're proud of that. We're also going to try to make it popular enough that sponsors want to come in, and if a sponsor will come in and pay for the challenge coins, pay for the dog tags, pay for the administration of the event, then we can straight up get to the point where 100% of every entry fee goes directly to Mission 22. So I'm trying to work on right now finding out what the numbers are for how much it costs to put one veteran into a seat for a fish camp, one veteran into the R&R program with Mission 22. And once we know those numbers, then we can truly say for every 5 people that enter, we can save a veteran's life. For every 2 people that enter, we can. But to be honest with you, just by spreading the word, and getting people talking without spending any money, you can still make a difference, and you can truly save a life, because you never know with the world of social media. You know, social media's got its good and it's got its bad, but you never know what person is going to see that and be inspired by it. You never know what, you know, philanthropic person's going to see it and want to contribute to it. You just don't know. And so even if you can't enter it, if you can share the event, if you can post up and tag the people who do it, by spreading the word, we can all save lives. And so that's what I'm excited about for 2022. It is my personal mission. I've made it the mission of my brand. And to be honest with you, I don't know that this isn't something that I should have been doing all along, but I had a journey that I had to take, getting myself taken care of, getting out of the military, that I don't think I would have been in the right place to do this before. And they say, you know, God won't give you more than you can handle. And so I think I had to go through a lot of stuff. You know, they say you grow through what you go through, and I've grown a lot. I've kind of evolved as a human being, and I think now we're in the right place. The sport's in the right place. The country's in the right place. All the stars have aligned to make this the time. If you watch TV, you see Tunnels to Tower commercials. You see Wounded Warrior commercials. Celebrities are lending their voice to it. So veterans, you know, committing suicide in a dark corner of the world, and it getting no media coverage and getting no press and getting no, those days are over. It's ending. And so the synergy that's happening with multiple organizations taking up the charge is exciting to me, and I just want to be part of trying to make a difference. So, yeah.
That's awesome. My little brother, like I told you earlier, he's in the Navy, and I hope he never reaches that point or anything, but yeah, it's awesome to know that there's organizations out there that...
Yeah, the ultimate goal would be to create something that nobody ever needs.
Exactly.
That'd be the best thing ever.
That's awesome.
100%.
So I found you through YouTube.
Okay.
And I'm going to change it up a little bit on us. And how did you get started filming yourself in the kayak? And then what are some tips for somebody just getting into it?
Well, I got started by taking a wood rod dowel. You know what a wood rod dowel is? And I put a Sony camera underwater case that I used to use because I like to do a lot of snorkeling and stuff like that, because I used to be a rescue swimmer in the Navy. And I taped it with duct tape. Well, I put rope around it, tied it on there like a figure eight, and then I put a bunch of duct tape on it. And I just was like, I'm gonna take this out and I'm gonna film fish underwater. And I was doing that to film fish that were bedding. And I was sticking the stick in the ground, and then I was backing up from it and fishing towards it, and I was getting the underwater shot. But I really just wanted to get the shots of the fish underwater. Didn't know what the hell I was gonna do with them, other than just watching their body language and studying them and that kind of thing. Well, then I used to take that wood rod dowel and stick it in the PVC pipe in the corner of my kayak crate, and it would spin around and all that. Well, I took my camera out one time and I turned it off, and I thought it didn't turn off, so I pressed the button again and I turned it back on. I don't think I've ever told this story, so this might be like the first time I've said it. I stuck it in the milk crate, and it actually set up to where it was filming over my shoulder. You can only see like half of my head and my shoulder, and I was throwing these topwater frogs on my way back to the truck, and I got like a monster blow up. And when I got home and I looked at the camera, I was like, oh shit, I left the camera on. I had like a 2-hour clip. And you know, back then it was a little VHS tape, and so you couldn't just fast forward through it like you can now with the drag thing. You had to watch it, and you could fast forward it, but you couldn't just drag the slider. So I'm fast forwarding through it, and I remember, oh shoot, I might have got that fat fish that I caught. So I fast forward to it, and I find that spot, and I back up and I watch it. Now thinking about this, I'm the person who caught the fish, but I get to watch it. And when I saw it, I was actually probably more excited that I got it on camera than I was when I caught it, because if I'm watching that going, damn, that's pretty cool, I knew that a lot of other people would. So YouTube was just getting started, but I honestly thought back then YouTube was like where teenage kids kick each other's in the balls, you know what I mean? Like it was like oh, look at it. Was literally just like Jackass back in the day. That's all that was on YouTube. And a couple buddies had gotten on there, and they're like, dude, you should load a video up. So I loaded a video up on my first YouTube channel, and I forgot about it. Didn't do any real title, didn't do anything. And I think like a week later, it had like 2,000 views. And I was like, what the hell? I didn't even know how to change anything. I just was like, man, I'm gonna do that again. So I went out and made another video, and I was writing the book Kayak Bass Fishing at the time because I wanted to share my knowledge and experiences. And I remember having this epiphany. Holy cow, if I write this tip in a book, the only people that are gonna get it are the people that read the book. But if I put it on a video, thousands of people can end up getting it. So I then put it on YouTube. My production company at the time was getting into DVDs, and they were like, dude, don't put that stuff on YouTube for free. Let's make a DVD about it. So we made a DVD to go with the book. Well, then they ended up pitching that to the network, World Fishing Network, and they were like, yes, we want that. So I knew that video was a way to reach people. I wasn't smart enough at the time to know YouTube was going to be as big as it is now. So I focused more for the first 5 or 6 years on developing the TV show. And then for about 4 years, three or 4 years, I would just put the TV stuff on YouTube. And I thought, man, this is so much better than the stuff that's on YouTube. But I would put it on YouTube and it wouldn't do well. And I'm like, what the hell? So I finally figured out that you have to do content different for YouTube because you're doing it to YouTube, not to TV. And that's been a really good learning experience, and it's been a different process. And over the last 3 years, I've grown more than I grew in the first 7 or 8 years that I was on YouTube. And now I'm probably 85% YouTube, 15% TV. I focus way more on YouTube than anything else because I know it's real time. I can shoot a video today, edit it tomorrow, have it up the next day, and it can impact people. I shoot a TV show, and I'm shooting a TV show in 2 weeks. It won't air till July, and one of the shows that I shot was last September, and it's not going to be aired until July. So that content's delayed. The ability to get it in front of people is delayed. So what I love about YouTube is the community that it builds, the interaction that it builds. But a little secret that a lot of content creators and YouTubers don't share is we get as much out of it as the people who watch, because the comments and the questions that people ask and the stuff that people come up to me and say at trade shows has accelerated my learning curve to where it's made me a better angler, so then I could turn around and reshare that information with my audience. And so I call my fans knuckleheads. They're actually pushing me to do a Knucklehead Nation, you know, call out and do shirts and hats and stuff. And I may very well do that if I can use it to raise money for, you know, veteran suicide awareness, or to do the scholarship thing. But it's just one of those things, just like the tournament thing. I did it and it was fun and I got something out of it, and so did, you know, the people that were watching it, and it just snowballed. It's just like everything else. None of it was on purpose. None of it was intentional. I think the only thing out of all the stuff I've done in my career that was truly intentional was the book. But that was because friends who knew me said, dude, you ought to write a book. I'm not writing a book. And reluctantly, but thankfully, I went ahead and did it. That book turned into the video series, that turned into my TV show, that turned into all the stuff that I'm doing now. And so it's been a real blessing. It's been awesome. I had been kayak fishing for a long time before I started the show. And to be honest, early on, I didn't want kayak fishing to get popular because it was kind of like my thing. I didn't want every cove that I pulled up into to have 15 kayak anglers in it. I mean, my first 10 years I went kayak fishing, I would never see another kayak fisherman. Now I can't halfway go to anywhere that I don't go out there and there's 5 kayak fishermen already there. So, but it is what it is. You know, back in the day, man, I used to catch so many big fish because I had all these places that nobody could get to. Now I get there and there's already 5 kayak anglers there, and it's like, okay, that's what I asked for. But it also just means I gotta look that much harder and that much further and that much more to find those same type of fish, you know? And I'm sharing that whole thing with the world, which is the way it's supposed to be.
I like that you're not hoarding it for yourself. You know, like, it's a catch. You don't want to share your secret spots, but at the same time, you want people to go have fun. Absolutely. And you got to take them to the good spots for them to have fun and stuff.
Absolutely.
I like that. Last question, and I'll let you go. Your #1 kayak fishing technique, you know, not in a bass boat, just kayak specific, and one tip on how to improve on that technique.
#1 technique. I would say my #1 technique, the one that's the most effective, is fishing a weightless Senko, okay? And the reason that I say that is you can throw a weightless Senko into places you can't throw a wacky rig Senko. Weightless meaning it's just got a extra wide gap hook or an offset worm hook into one end, and you're just letting it fall without any weight. It's more natural, in my opinion, than when it's got a weight on the front of it, like Texas rig. It works anywhere. Anywhere bass live, a Senko will catch them. And my number one tip for throwing it is to move the lure with the rod, not with the reel handle. That way when you feel the bite, you can drop your rod tip, let them take it a little bit more, reel down and set the hook. But you also don't want to put the action on the lure, because the Senko falling is the action. So just give it a couple twitches with your rod tip and give it some slack so it falling does its thing. Don't overfish it. Reel up your slack with your reel and then move it with the rod. When you feel that fish tap it, give it back. Watch where it's swimming. If it's going to the left, so set the hook to the right. If it's going to the right, set the hook to the left. That way you don't gut hook them and you catch them in the corner of the mouth. And to me, that's not only one of my favorite techniques, it's also one of the best techniques for getting someone that's not really that into fishing hooked, because it's so effective. It's also a great way to get your confidence built up. And you might want to catch them a different way, but you can throw a Senko and find out if the fish are there or not. If you're not catching them on a Senko, you're probably not going to catch them on anything else. So it's a really good all-around effective technique. But you can twitch, reel your slack up, twitch, give it some slack. As long as you're letting it fall some, you can still almost power finesse fish it. So to me, it's the most effective technique out there for catching fish. You're going to catch more fish. And it catches everything from the smallest dink out there to the biggest fish that swims in that lake. So that also makes it a really great technique. When it comes to fun fishing, it's probably a topwater frog. When it comes to effectiveness for a power fishing presentation, it's kind of split between a chatterbait and a spinnerbait. But to answer the question you actually asked, it's fishing a Senko. Now, the real answer to the second part of the question is, how do you fish it more effectively? Just don't line your kayak up with where you're fishing, because when you set the hook, if the fish is running at you and it's pulling the kayak towards it, you're going to converge, and a lot of times they're going to jump and throw the hook on you. So always have your kayak offset about 45 degrees to where you're casting, or cast 45 degrees off of the nose of your kayak. That way when you set the hook, you're not exactly in line with the fish, and you're going to get a little bit of a drag when it pulls your nose around before that fish closes on you or converges and puts so much slack in the line if you can't keep up with them that they throw the hook on you. So yeah, that's my tip. Don't use too big a hook. Use as small a hook as you can get away with in the situation. Usually a 3, 4, or 5/0. I use a 5/0 around heavy wood because I want that big curve to come over the top of tree limbs and things like that. But I'm usually somewhere in that 3/0 range for the most part. When I get into grass, I'll downsize to a 2/0. If I'm fishing just complete open water, I'll fish a 2/0. But if I'm fishing around any type of cover or structure, I actually like the weight of the hook itself to create a little bit of a nose down, a little bit of an extra shimmy on that one end. That's it, man. Fishing a Senko, you can't beat it.